My name is Bella Walker, and I'm 32 years old. 5 minutes. That's all it took for my sister to destroy herself while trying to humiliate me. She called me a beggar in her marble-floored bank, denied my simple withdrawal request, and announced to 20 witnesses that we don't serve your kind here. But she didn't know about the sealed envelope in my purse, or the 4.2 billion reasons why her cruelty would cost her everything. Before I reveal how a kindergarten teacher became the majority owner of Heritage Trust Bank, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there. It all started on a humid Tuesday morning when I walked through those heavy glass doors, past my grandfather's portrait, never imagining I'd own the building by lunch. I'd been teaching kindergarten at Riverside Elementary for 8 years. Every morning, 25 5-year-olds would burst through my classroom door with gap-toothed smiles and sticky hands, calling out Miss Bella with pure joy. Their parents, nurses, mechanics, single mothers working 2 jobs, trusted me with their most precious possessions. To them, I was invaluable. To my family, I was the disappointment who'd wasted her potential on finger painting and alphabet songs. Victoria had everything: the corner office, the 6-figure salary, mother's approval. When she'd been appointed branch director of Heritage Trust Bank 6 months ago, Mother threw a party at the country club. When I'd won Teacher of the Year, she'd asked if it came with a raise. It didn't. Our grandfather, James Walker, had built Heritage Trust from a single branch in 1962 into a regional powerhouse. He'd passed away 2 weeks ago, and the family was still sorting through his estate. I'd received a letter from his personal attorney, Harold Morrison, but hadn't opened it yet. It sat in my desk drawer at school, sealed with red wax like something from another era. Victoria's success hadn't made her kinder. Last Christmas, she'd announced to the entire family dinner that teachers were glorified babysitters and suggested I could still make something of myself if I went back for an MBA. She'd even offered to pay, her Hermes bag casually displayed on the table next to the cranberry sauce, her generosity as hollow as her smile. I never asked for special treatment. I just wanted to be treated like a human being. That Tuesday morning, I needed cash for classroom supplies, construction paper, glue sticks, the basics my school couldn't afford. My checking account held exactly $287.43. I needed $150 in cash. I should have gone to any other bank. The humiliations had started small. At Dad's funeral 3 years ago, Victoria had seated me at the back with distant cousins while she commanded the front row. At family gatherings, she'd interrupt my stories about breakthrough moments with struggling students to discuss her latest promotion or acquisition. "That's sweet, Bella," she'd say, patting my hand like I was one of my kindergartners. "Now let me tell you about real achievement." I'd learned to stay quiet, to smile and nod while she dominated every conversation. Mother encouraged it. "Victoria has such important things to share," she'd say. "Your little classroom stories can wait." But that morning, I couldn't wait. The school's autumn festival was in 3 days, and I'd promised my kids we'd make paper lanterns. The supply budget had run out in September. I'd already spent $200 of my own money that month on books and snacks for the kids who came to school hungry. I needed that $150. Heritage Trust Bank stood like a monument to grandfather's ambition, all marble and mahogany, crystal and chrome. His portrait hung in the main lobby, those kind eyes that had always seen me differently than the rest of the family did. He'd visit my classroom sometimes, sitting in a tiny plastic chair, listening to children read stumbling sentences about cats and dogs. "You're teaching them to dream, Bella," he'd said once. "That's worth more than any deal I've ever made." I noticed something else in the lobby that morning. A sealed envelope in my purse seemed to pulse with significance. Morrison had sent it with specific instructions. "Open only when necessary. You'll know when." I'd thought it was about some small inheritance, maybe a few $1,000s. Grandfather had always been generous but practical. I was about to learn just how practical he'd been. Heritage Trust Bank was designed to intimidate. Italian marble floors reflected the Waterford crystal chandeliers. Mahogany desks, each worth more than my annual salary, stood like altars to wealth. The leather chairs probably cost more than my car. Even the air smelled expensive, some mixture of leather polish and old money that made people like me instinctively speak in whispers. The other customers that morning wore designer suits and carried briefcases that cost more than I made in a month. A woman in Chanel adjusted her pearls while discussing a wire transfer to Switzerland. A man in Tom Ford checked his Rolex impatiently, his Italian leather shoes tapping against the marble. And there I stood in my Target cardigan and flats I'd bought on clearance, clutching my teacher's tote bag decorated with smiling suns my students had drawn. The tellers noticed me immediately. I saw recognition flicker across their faces. I was Victoria's sister, the family embarrassment. Two younger employees whispered behind manicured hands. But Margaret, who'd worked here since grandfather's time, offered me a warm smile and gestured me forward. "Good morning, Miss Bella. How can I help you today?" Before I could answer, the executive elevator chimed. Victoria emerged like she was walking a runway, her Louboutin heels clicking against marble, her cream Saint Laurent suit impeccable. Her Patek Philippe watch caught the light as she raised her hand to smooth already perfect hair. The entire bank seemed to shift toward her, employees straightening like flowers toward the sun. She had that effect, commanding attention, demanding deference. She was halfway to her office when she stopped, turned, and noticed the small disruption in her kingdom's perfect order. Me. "Is there a problem here?" Her voice carried across the lobby, sharp enough to cut glass. Every conversation stopped, every head turned. The woman in Chanel actually pulled out her phone, sensing drama. Margaret's hand trembled slightly as she set down her pen. Miss Walker was just... Which Miss Walker? Victoria's smile could have frozen hell. Victoria approached slowly, her heels marking each step like a countdown. She tilted her head, studying me with theatrical confusion. "Oh," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's you! What are you doing here?" 20 pairs of eyes focused on us. The security guards shifted closer. The man in Tom Ford stopped checking his watch. "I need to make a withdrawal," I said calmly. $150. Victoria's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. "A withdrawal? From which account exactly?" She turned to Margaret. "Does she even have an account here?" "I've been a customer for 12 years, I said. "Grandfather opened my first savings account when I was 20. "Grandfather." Victoria savored the word like expensive wine. "Yes, he did have a soft spot for charity cases." She pulled out her Louis Vuitton tablet case, making a show of checking something. "Let me guess. You need money for crayons, construction paper? Or are we funding snack time this week?" "School supplies," I said simply. "The autumn festival is..." "The autumn festival." She addressed the growing audience. "My sister teaches kindergarten, everyone. Finger painting and nursery rhymes. Very important work." Her sarcasm dripped like poison honey. "Margaret, what's the balance on this account?" Margaret looked miserable. "I shouldn't. I'm the branch director. The balance, please." Margaret typed reluctantly. $287.43. Victoria's smile widened. "And she wants to withdraw $150, leaving her with just over $100 to her name." She announced this like a carnival barker. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is a private bank, not a charity organization. We have standards, minimum balance requirements. We don't serve," she paused for effect, "beggars." The word hung in the air like a slap. The woman in Chanel gasped softly. Even the security guard looked uncomfortable. "She wants to withdraw her last $150, Victoria announced to the lobby like she was revealing a scandal. "This is what happens when we lower our standards. People who don't belong here start thinking they're entitled to our services." The man in Tom Ford nodded approvingly. A younger couple in matching Burberry exchanged amused glances. But I noticed Margaret's face had gone pale, and another senior teller, Robert, was frantically typing something at his terminal. "I'm a customer," I said, keeping my voice level. "I have every right to access my funds." "Rights?" Victoria laughed. You have rights? You teach 5-year-olds how to color inside the lines. You make $38,000 a year. You drive a 10-year-old Honda. What rights do you think you have in a bank that manages billions? She pulled out her gold Mont Blanc pen, tapping it against her palm. You know what? I'm going to do you a favor, Bella. A real sister-to-sister kindness. She turned to the crowd. Everyone, I want you to witness this. As of today, Heritage Trust Bank is implementing a new policy. We will no longer service accounts that cannot maintain a minimum balance of $10,000. It's about maintaining our exclusive clientele. You can't do that, Margaret said quietly. Victoria whirled on her. Excuse me? I said, Margaret's voice grew stronger. You can't do that. There are regulations, account holder rights. Mr. Walker would never. Mr. Walker is dead, Victoria snapped. I run this branch now, and I decide who we serve. I reached for my bag, my fingers brushing the sealed envelope. Not yet, I told myself. Let her dig deeper. So, Victoria continued, her voice syrup-sweet. Bella, darling, I suggest you take your little teacher salary to a credit union, somewhere more appropriate for your economic class. Security, please escort my sister out. She's disrupting our legitimate customers. The security guard stepped forward reluctantly. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I stood perfectly still. I'm not leaving until I complete my transaction. Victoria's face flushed. Security, remove her, now. If she resists, call the police. We'll file trespassing charges. The guard reached for my arm, but I stepped back, pulling out my phone. One moment, please. Oh, this is precious, Victoria laughed. Are you calling Mommy? Going to tell her how mean I'm being? I dialed a number I'd memorized 2 weeks ago. Mr. Morrison? Yes, it's time. Victoria rolled her eyes dramatically. Everyone, my sister is having a breakdown. Calling imaginary lawyers. This is what happens when you can't accept your place in life. Morrison? The man in Tom Ford perked up. Not Harold Morrison? Probably some legal aid attorney, Victoria said dismissively. Someone who specializes in helping the underprivileged sue their betters. Security. Get her out of here before... Margaret suddenly spoke up, her voice cutting through Victoria's tirade. Ms. Victoria, I really think you should... You think? Victoria rounded on her. You're a teller, Margaret. You don't think. You count money, and if you interrupt me again, you won't even do that. Understood? The lobby had gone completely silent. Even the Chanel woman looked appalled. The younger couple in Burberry had started recording on their phones. Mr. Morrison says he'll be here in 5 minutes, I said calmly. He's bringing the documents. Documents? Victoria's laugh was slightly less certain. What documents? A restraining order? A lawsuit you can't afford to file? Thomas Chen, the senior bank manager, appeared from the back offices, clearly sensing trouble. Ms. Walker? Victoria? Is there a situation here? Nothing I can't handle, Thomas. My sister is just leaving. Actually, I said, looking directly at Thomas, I need to make a large transfer. From my trust account. Victoria's laughter echoed off the marble walls. Trust account? Large transfer? How large could it possibly be? $500? $4.2 billion. The silence that followed was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop on those marble floors. The woman in Chanel actually dropped her phone. The man in Tom Ford's mouth fell open. Then Victoria started laughing, harsh, hysterical laughter that bounced off the crystal chandeliers. She's lost her mind. Someone call psychiatric services. My sister thinks she has $4 billion. But Thomas wasn't laughing. His face had gone pale. Ms. Walker. Bella. Could you please clarify what you just said? She's delusional, Victoria insisted, but her voice had developed a slight tremor. This is what happens when people can't accept their station in life. They create fantasies. I need to transfer $4.2 billion, I repeated calmly, from the trust account established by James Walker. I'll need board approval, of course. Mr. Morrison is bringing the documentation now. This is insane! Victoria's carefully maintained composure was cracking. Grandfather's estate is held in the family trust. Mother is the executor. I would know if— Would you? I asked quietly. Did you read the full trust documents? All 73 pages, including the behavioral clauses? Thomas pulled out his phone, his fingers flying across the screen. Morrison? You said Harold Morrison is coming? Yes. Harold Morrison from Harrison Morrison and Associates? His voice had risen an octave. The firm that handles the bank's corporate legal work? The same. Victoria grabbed Thomas's arm. This is a psychiatric emergency. She's having delusions of grandeur. Call security. Call the police. Call— The glass doors swung open. Harold Morrison entered, flanked by two younger associates, each carrying leather briefcases. Morrison looked exactly as he had at grandfather's funeral, silver-haired, immaculate, with the bearing of someone who'd spent 50 years commanding boardrooms. Ms. Walker, he nodded to me. I apologize for the delay. Traffic was unfortunate. He turned to Victoria, his expression cooling considerably. Ms. Victoria Walker, we need to discuss your grandfather's instructions. Dead silence gripped the bank. Every customer, every employee stood frozen, watching the scene unfold like a car crash in slow motion. The security guard had backed away, clearly out of his depth. Victoria laughed again, but it sounded forced. This is ridiculous. Thomas, call the police. This man is obviously part of my sister's delusion. Ms. Victoria Walker, Morrison's voice cut through her protests like a blade. I'm here on behalf of the estate of James Walker. I have documents that require immediate attention from the board of directors. Thomas was already backing toward his office. I'll make some calls. That won't be necessary, Morrison said. I've already notified Chairman Reynolds. The board is assembling as we speak. They should arrive within 30 minutes. This is impossible! Victoria's mask finally slipped completely. Grandfather left everything to the family trust. Mother told me she's the executor. I would know if Bella had any significant inheritance. Morrison pulled a folder from his briefcase. Your grandfather left very specific instructions that were triggered this morning at 9:47 a.m. Triggered? Victoria's voice cracked. What are you talking about? Perhaps we should discuss the behavioral clause, Morrison said calmly. Section 7B of the trust documents, the one concerning conduct unbecoming of a Walker family member. Margaret gasped audibly. Robert, the senior teller, actually smiled. The customers with their phones out moved closer, sensing the story of a lifetime. Victoria's face had gone from red to white. What behavioral clause? The one you clearly didn't read, I said quietly. Grandfather was very thorough. Morrison opened his folder. Shall I read it aloud? Here, in front of everyone? Or would you prefer to wait for the board? The Patek Philippe on Victoria's wrist caught the light as her hand trembled. This isn't happening. If you've ever been underestimated by family who should support you, you'll understand what happens next. Please share your own story in the comments. When did someone judge you before knowing your full truth? And if this resonates, please hit that like button. Now, let me tell you about the documents that changed everything and why my grandfather, who built this bank from nothing, knew exactly what would happen in this lobby today. I don't care who you are, Victoria said to Morrison, desperation creeping into her voice. This woman is having a mental breakdown. She teaches kindergarten. She makes nothing. She drives a Honda. There's no way she has billions of dollars. She turned to the growing crowd. You all saw it. She came in here asking for $150, her last money. Now suddenly she claims to be a billionaire. This is mental illness. Security, she barked. Remove all of these people immediately. Clear the bank. We're closing for emergency maintenance. The guard didn't move. He was staring at Morrison's business card. Thomas! Victoria wheeled on the senior manager. Do something. This is your bank too. Thomas cleared his throat. Actually, Victoria, I recognize Mr. Morrison. He handled the IPO restructuring 5 years ago. He is definitely who he says he is. That doesn't mean anything. Victoria's voice had risen to near shriek. So he's a real lawyer. That doesn't make her delusions real. Grandfather would never. He knew what she was. A failure, a disappointment. He would never leave her. Your grandfather, Morrison interrupted coldly, left very specific instructions about his estate and about the behavior he expected from his heirs. Margaret stepped forward. Ms. Victoria, perhaps we should all just calm down and— You're fired, Victoria snapped. Clear out your desk. Security, escort Margaret out immediately. You can't fire Margaret, Thomas said quietly. Only the board can approve termination of employees with over 20 years' tenure. Victoria's perfect composure was completely shattered now. Mascara smudged under one eye. Her perfect chignon had loosened, wisps of hair escaping. This is a conspiracy. You're all in on it. You're trying to destroy me because you're jealous of my success. Morrison reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick document bound in leather. Mr. Chen, as senior manager, you need to see this immediately. This is the death certificate of James Walker, along with the executive summary of his last will and testament. Thomas took the documents with shaking hands. His eyes widened as he read. This can't be— What? Victoria snatched at the papers, but Morrison smoothly intercepted her. Ms. Victoria Walker, you'll have your opportunity to review these documents when the board arrives. For now, I need to inform you that as of 9:47 a.m. this morning, when you publicly denied service to a Heritage Trust Bank customer based on economic discrimination, you triggered Section 7B of the Walker Family Trust. Section 7B? The man in Tom Ford had moved closer, fascinated. What's Section 7B? Morrison's voice carried clearly through the marble lobby. A behavioral clause instituted by James Walker. Any family member in a position of authority at Heritage Trust Bank who violates the bank's code of ethics, specifically regarding discrimination based on economic status, immediately forfeits all management rights and triggers an automatic review of trust distributions. Thomas looked up from the documents, his face ashen. The numbers, Ms. Walker, Bella, is listed as contingent primary beneficiary of— Dear God. Not for much longer, Morrison said grimly. He turned to address the room. What you're witnessing is the execution of James Walker's final wishes. He believed that wealth without wisdom was worthless, that power without compassion was poison. Victoria stumbled backward, her Louboutin heel catching on the marble. No, this is fake. These are forged documents. Grandfather loved me. I was his favorite. I was the successful one. You were successful, Morrison agreed. But were you kind? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Every phone in the room was recording. The woman in Chanel had moved closer, her expression fascinated rather than appalled. This is impossible, Victoria's voice cracked. Grandfather left everything to the family trust. Mother told me she's the executor. She said I would inherit— Your mother, Morrison said carefully, is executor of the personal estate. The bank shares were held in a separate trust, a trust your grandfather modified 6 months ago after you became branch director. 6 months ago? Victoria's face went white. But he said he was proud of me. He said I was carrying on his legacy. He was testing you, I said quietly. He wanted to see what you would do with power. Victoria whirled on me. You knew? You knew about this? I knew he left me a letter. I didn't open it until this morning after you'd already made your decision about who deserves to be served here. The lobby was completely packed now. Bank employees from other floors had come down, drawn by the commotion. Several board members' assistants were frantically texting. The woman in Chanel was live streaming on Instagram. Show me the documents, Victoria demanded. I want to see these so-called papers. Morrison pulled out another folder. The behavioral clause, Section 7B. Would you like me to read it aloud? Yes, Thomas said before Victoria could respond. I think everyone needs to hear this. Morrison adjusted his glasses. Any heir employed by Heritage Trust Bank who engages in discrimination based on race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or economic status shall immediately forfeit all rights to management positions and controlling interests. This forfeiture is permanent and non-negotiable. But I didn't, Victoria started. We don't serve beggars, Morrison quoted. 23 witnesses heard you say it. It's probably on video by now. Victoria's hands were shaking so badly, her Patek Philippe rattled against her wrist. This can't be legal. Not only is it legal, Morrison continued, but you signed an acknowledgement of these terms when you accepted your position as branch director. Page 47 of your employment contract, which specifically incorporates the family trust provisions. Thomas was scrolling through his tablet. He's right. I have the signature page here. You initialed every page, Victoria. I didn't read. Nobody reads all of that. Victoria's voice was desperate now. It was a formality. Mother said it was just a formality. Your mother, Morrison said, pulling out yet another document, received this letter from your grandfather 3 months ago, warning her that the behavioral clause was in effect and that he would be monitoring all family members in positions of authority. The letter was on grandfather's personal stationery, his distinctive handwriting clear even from a distance. Morrison read, I've built this bank on the principle that every person deserves respect and fair treatment. If my heirs cannot uphold these values, they don't deserve to inherit my life's work. But Bella doesn't know anything about banking, Victoria grasped at straws. She teaches kindergarten. You can't give control of a bank to someone who teaches 5-year-olds. Your grandfather, Morrison replied, believed that someone who could be trusted with children could be trusted with anything. Besides, Ms. Walker won't be running day-to-day operations. She'll be the majority shareholder. The board and qualified executives will continue managing the bank. Margaret, who had been silent, suddenly spoke up. I've been documenting Ms. Victoria's behavior for months. Every time she turned away customers for not being wealthy enough, every time she berated employees for serving undesirable clients, I have dates, times, witnesses. You were spying on me? Victoria shrieked. I was protecting grandfather's legacy, Margaret said simply. He asked me to. He knew what you were becoming. The main entrance doors swung open. Chairman Reynolds strode in, followed by 4 other board members. Their faces were grim. Ladies and gentlemen, Reynolds announced, the Board of Heritage Trust Bank is now in emergency session. Morrison handed me another envelope, this one marked to be read only after the clause is triggered. Your grandfather wanted you to read this now, he said gently. I opened it with trembling fingers. Grandfather's handwriting, slightly shaky but still bold, filled the page. My dearest Bella, I read aloud, my voice catching. If you're reading this, then Victoria has shown her true nature, and you've finally stood up to her. I'm proud of you. I knew Victoria would discriminate against you. She's been heading down this path for years, valuing wealth over worth, status over substance. I gave her rope, hoping she would choose differently. She didn't. You, my dear, chose to teach, to nurture, to build the future one child at a time. You never asked me for money, never expected special treatment, never used my name to open doors. You earned everything through kindness and hard work. The bank needs leadership that remembers where we came from. I started Heritage Trust with $500 and a belief that everyone deserved respectful banking. We've lost that. Victoria embodies everything I never wanted my bank to become. I paused, looking at Victoria. She was crying now, her perfect makeup destroyed. The letter continued. The shares are yours, Bella. Not as a gift, but as a responsibility. Restore my bank to what it should be. A place where everyone is welcome, where a teacher's dollar is as valued as a millionaire's. P.S. Margaret has been my eyes and ears. Trust her. She knew what you were before you did. The board members were reading their own copies, pulled from Morrison's seemingly endless briefcase. Chairman Reynolds looked up, his expression grave. The documentation is irrefutable. The transfer is automatic and binding. Morrison addressed the board directly. Gentlemen, ladies, let me explain the mechanism. James Walker held 51% of Heritage Trust Bank shares in a specialized trust. Upon triggering of the behavioral clause, these shares automatically transfer to the contingent beneficiary, Ms. Bella Walker. 51%? Reynolds's eyebrows rose. James never told us the trust held that much. He spent the last 5 years quietly buying back shares, Morrison explained. Every time someone sold, he bought. He wanted to ensure that when this day came, and he knew it would come, the transfer would be decisive. Thomas was doing rapid calculations on his tablet. With 51%, Ms. Walker has controlling interest. She can call shareholder votes, replace board members, restructure operations. I can fire anyone, I said quietly, looking at Victoria, including branch directors who violate company policy. The transfer is irrevocable, Morrison continued. The 49% held by other family members remains unchanged, but the controlling interest is Ms. Walker's permanently. Additionally, there's a poison pill provision. If anyone contests this transfer in court, their shares are automatically donated to the Heritage Trust Employee Foundation. You can't do this! Victoria's mother, our mother, burst through the doors. Someone had clearly called her. I'm the executor. I control the estate. You control the personal estate, Morrison corrected. The house, the cars, the personal accounts. The bank shares were never part of that. James specifically excluded them. Mother turned on me, her face twisted with rage. You manipulative little... You planned this! You tricked him when he was weak! I didn't even know about it until today, I said calmly. Grandfather planned everything. He knew exactly what would happen when Victoria got power. He knew she would discriminate against me publicly, with witnesses. He knew her nature. Margaret stepped forward. Mrs. Walker, your husband warned you. I delivered the letter myself. You chose to ignore it. I wasn't the only one watching, Margaret said, her voice steady now. Mr. Walker asked several of us to document any violations of bank ethics. Robert, the senior teller, stepped forward. I have 14 incidents documented over the past 6 months. Customers turned away for their appearance, their accent, their zip code. A young loan officer raised her hand. She rejected the Riverside Community Center's loan application, said we weren't that kind of bank. They wanted to build an after-school program. She made me remove the Spanish language option from the ATMs, another employee added. Even some customers began speaking up. An elderly man in a worn jacket said, She refused to cash my Social Security check last month, said I should try the check cashing place down the street. The woman in Chanel surprised everyone. I've been recording for the past 20 minutes. She called her own sister a beggar. If she treats family like that, how does she treat strangers? Thomas pulled up files on his tablet. I've received 43 complaints about discriminatory treatment. I forwarded them all to corporate, but they were always dismissed. Now I understand why. Victoria was protecting herself. Morrison nodded. Mr. Walker was collecting evidence. He wanted an ironclad case. Today's incident was just the final proof. You were all spying on me, Victoria screamed. This is entrapment. This is illegal. This is accountability, Reynolds said firmly. Something that's been lacking at this branch for too long. The other board members were conferring quietly. One of them, Mrs. Patterson, spoke up. We need to vote on Ms. Victoria Walker's immediate termination for cause. No! Victoria lunged toward me. Bella, please! We're sisters! We're family! Security stepped between us, but I raised my hand to stop them. I wanted to look her in the eye for this part. Chairman Reynolds made a decision that changed everything. We're conducting this board meeting here in the public lobby. Transparency has been lacking at Heritage Trust. That changes today. The board members arranged themselves near the reception desk. Reynolds banged his Mont Blanc pen like a gavel on the marble counter. This emergency meeting of the Heritage Trust Bank Board of Directors is now in session. All in favor of accepting the transfer of shares to Ms. Bella Walker as documented? 5 hands rose immediately. Motion carries. Ms. Bella Walker is now the majority shareholder of Heritage Trust Bank. He turned to Victoria. Ms. Victoria Walker, you are suspended immediately pending investigation of multiple ethics violations. You can't, Victoria started. Furthermore, Reynolds continued, security will escort you to clear your office. Your corporate cards are canceled, your parking pass is revoked, your signature authority is terminated. The security guard who Victoria had ordered to remove me earlier stepped forward with a box. Ma'am, I'll need your keys, your corporate cards, and your access badge. Victoria's hands shook as she removed the Heritage Trust keycard from her Louis Vuitton wallet. The magnetic strip caught the light, her photo showing that same superior smile she'd worn just 30 minutes ago. The car, Thomas said quietly. The Mercedes in the executive lot is bank property. That's my car, Victoria protested. It's a corporate lease under the bank's name. Thomas pulled up the documentation, reserved for the branch director, who is no longer you. One by one, the symbols of Victoria's power were stripped away. Her corporate American Express card, the key to the executive washroom, the parking pass for the reserved spot right by the door, even her Mont Blanc pen, a gift from the bank for her appointment. The woman in Chanel was still filming. The live stream had apparently gone viral. Someone whispered that there were 50,000 viewers watching. This is humiliation, Victoria cried. Public humiliation. No, I said quietly. This is consequences. Victoria fell to her knees, her Saint Laurent suit creasing against the marble floor. Bella, please. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, I was stressed. The pressure, you don't understand the pressure. Get up, I said calmly. You're making a scene. I'll apologize, publicly. I'll say whatever you want. She was crying openly now, mascara streaming down her cheeks. We're sisters. Doesn't that mean anything? It meant something to me, I replied. Every holiday you made me sit at the children's table. Every family dinner where you mocked my career. Every time you introduced me as your little sister who teaches kindergarten with that tone, you know the one. I was trying to motivate you, to push you to be better. Better? I looked around the marble lobby. Better like you? Turning away elderly people trying to cash Social Security checks? Rejecting loans for community centers? Making employees remove Spanish from ATMs? Victoria grabbed at my simple flats. I'll change. I'll implement whatever policies you want. Just don't do this. You know what the saddest part is? I asked. Grandfather would have given you everything. All you had to do was be kind. That's it. Just treat people with basic human dignity. I worked 80-hour weeks, Victoria sobbed. I brought in million-dollar clients. I increased profits by 30%. And lost your soul in the process, Margaret said quietly. Mother stepped toward me. Bella, she's your sister. Your only sister. Don't destroy her like this. I'm not destroying her, I said. She destroyed herself. I'm just refusing to enable it anymore. Victoria looked up, her face a ruin of makeup and tears. What am I supposed to do? This job is everything to me. You're smart, you're educated, you'll figure it out. Maybe try teaching. You might learn something about humility. This moment, when Victoria finally faced consequences, was years in the making. How many of us have waited for justice from family members who abuse their power? If you've experienced this, you're not alone. Your story matters. Please share it below, and remember, standing up for yourself isn't revenge, it's self-respect. Now, let me show you exactly what happened when the board voted, and how a kindergarten teacher's first decision as majority shareholder changed everything at Heritage Trust Bank. Chairman Reynolds called for order. We need to vote on Ms. Victoria Walker's termination for cause. The causes cited include discrimination against customers based on economic status, creating a hostile work environment, violation of the bank's code of ethics, and breach of fiduciary duty. I need a lawyer. Victoria scrambled to her feet. You can't do this without representation. You have the right to appeal, Reynolds said. After the vote, all in favor of immediate termination for cause? 5 hands rose without hesitation. Motion carries unanimously. Ms. Victoria Walker, your employment with Heritage Trust Bank is terminated effective immediately. Due to the nature of your violations, you are also barred from employment at any FDIC-insured institution for 10 years. The crowd gasped. The 10-year ban was the nuclear option, usually reserved for embezzlement or fraud. Furthermore, Reynolds continued, reading from his tablet, a forensic audit of your department will begin Monday. Any irregularities found will be reported to federal regulators. Thomas's phone buzzed. He looked at it, his face paling. Chairman, I just received something you need to see. He showed Reynolds his screen. Reynolds's expression darkened. It appears 3 other Heritage Trust branches have filed complaints about Ms. Victoria Walker's conduct during her rotation program. They were never investigated. Because Mother made them go away, Margaret said quietly. She called in favors, threatened to pull family investments. Mother's face went red. You can't prove that. Actually, Morrison interjected. We can. Email records are remarkably persistent. Victoria's Patek Philippe began beeping, a calendar reminder. The sound was jarring in the tense silence. She looked at it, then laughed bitterly. I had a meeting with Goldman Sachs this afternoon. I was going to leave Heritage anyway, move to investment banking, make real money. About that, Morrison said. Goldman Sachs has been notified of your termination for cause, as have J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo. Industry blacklists work quickly. I stood and addressed the room, employees, customers, board members, and the thousands watching online. My voice was steady, clear, carrying the authority I'd never claimed before. As majority shareholder of Heritage Trust Bank, my first directive is simple, effective immediately. All minimum balance requirements for basic checking and savings accounts are eliminated. The room erupted in murmurs. Reynolds started to speak, but I continued. Second, we will implement financial literacy programs in partnership with local schools. Every teacher in our service area will receive preferred rates and fee waivers. The Riverside Community Center loan that was rejected? Approved, pending standard due diligence. The elderly man who'd been turned away last month began crying. Thank you, he whispered. Third, mandatory customer service training for all employees, focusing on dignity and respect regardless of account balance. Margaret Chen will oversee this program as our new Vice President of Customer Relations. Margaret gasped. Ms. Walker, I'm just a teller. You're the employee who remembered what my grandfather stood for. That's the leadership we need. I turned to Victoria, who stood frozen, her designer suit wrinkled, her face streaked with mascara. Fourth, we're establishing a restorative justice program. Victoria, you'll receive 6 months of severance and paid counseling, conditional on completing a financial ethics course and 200 hours of community service at organizations serving low-income families. You're giving me severance? Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. Grandfather believed in redemption. So do I. But redemption requires acknowledgement of harm and genuine change. Thomas cleared his throat. Ms. Walker, these changes, they'll reduce profits initially. My grandfather built this bank on trust, not greed. We'll return to those principles. If that means smaller profits but stronger communities, that's a trade I'll make. The transformation was immediate. Thomas began making calls, implementing the new policies. Margaret stood taller, already making notes about the customer service program. Employees who'd been silent for months began suggesting improvements. The Spanish language option will be restored to all ATMs by end of business today, Thomas announced. It is already working on it. Robert stepped forward. Ms. Walker, there are 17 customers who were wrongly turned away in the past 6 months. Should we contact them? With apologies and preferred rates, I confirmed. Every single one. The woman in Chanel approached me. I'm Jennifer Martinez, she said, surprising me with a slight accent I hadn't noticed before. I'm a tech entrepreneur. I kept my accounts here despite your sister's treatment because I wanted to document it. I have 37 incidents recorded. 37? I dress well now, but I grew up in Riverside. Your sister didn't recognize me, but she rejected my parents' mortgage application 5 years ago. Said the neighborhood was undesirable. They lost their home. I felt sick. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize for her. Just fix it. Make this bank what your grandfather intended. Chairman Reynolds approached. Ms. Walker, Bella, the board supports your initiatives, but we'll need a business plan. I'll have one ready by Monday, but I won't be leaving my teaching job. You're keeping your kindergarten position? He looked stunned. Those 5-year-olds need consistency. Besides, I'll be a better shareholder if I stay connected to the community we serve. I'll attend board meetings, review major decisions, but day-to-day operations need experienced bankers. Like me? Thomas asked hopefully. Like you, if you embrace the new vision. The old Heritage Trust is dead. We're building something better. My phone buzzed. A text from one of my students' parents. Ms. Bella, is that you on the news? Isabella says you're a superhero now. I smiled. Not a superhero, just a teacher who learned to set boundaries. Security returned with boxes from Victoria's office. She watched as they inventoried everything, separating bank property from personal items. The Hermes desk set, Thomas read from a list. Bank property, purchased with corporate card. The Crystal Awards, he continued. Bank property. The Persian rug. That was a gift, Victoria protested. From a client. A gift to the position, not the person, Morrison clarified. It stays. Item by item, Victoria's carefully curated executive image was dismantled. The signed photographs with banking celebrities, taken with bank camera at bank events. The first edition business books, bought with the corporate account. Even the designer tissue box holder, expensed as office supplies. Her personal items fit in a single small box. A coffee mug reading, World's Best Sister, a gag gift from me years ago that I was surprised she'd kept, a photo of our family from before Dad died, before everything changed, and a wilted succulent she'd forgotten to water. Your corporate vehicle is being retrieved from the parking garage, Thomas informed her. Your personal vehicle. I sold it, Victoria whispered. 6 months ago. The Mercedes was enough. I didn't need 2 cars. An awkward silence fell. She had no way to leave. I'll drive you home, I said quietly. In your 10-year-old Honda? She laughed bitterly. The car I mocked? It runs. It's paid for. And it's mine. Victoria's assistant, Jennifer, approached hesitantly. Ms. Victoria, I wanted to say... She stopped, then straightened. Actually, no. I don't want to say anything. You made my life hell for 2 years. I'm glad you're gone. She turned to me. Ms. Walker, I'm a good assistant. I'd like to apply to support whoever replaces her. The job is yours if you want it, I said. Same salary, better boss. My phone rang. Mother's name flashed on the screen. I put it on speaker. Transparency was my new policy. Bella, what have you done? Her voice was shrill. You've destroyed our family. Your grandfather would be ashamed. Actually, Mrs. Walker, Morrison interjected, your husband left you this letter to be opened if you called to berate Bella. He handed me another envelope. I read aloud. Patricia, if you're hearing this, it means you've chosen Victoria's side despite knowing the truth. I'm disappointed, but not surprised. You've always valued appearance over substance, money over morals. I warned you 3 months ago that Victoria was being tested. You chose to hide that warning instead of guiding her toward better choices. Mother's sharp intake of breath was audible through the phone. You receive your share of the personal estate, the house, the vacation properties, the investment accounts. $5 million, enough for a comfortable life. But you forfeit any claim to the bank shares or influence over their management. Choose your next words carefully. Your financial future depends on accepting this with grace. This is coercion, Mother sputtered. This is consequence, Morrison corrected. You enabled Victoria's behavior for years. You threatened bank employees who complained. We have the emails, Patricia. Silence. Then, I need time to process this. Take all the time you need, I said. But know this. I'm not the disappointment anymore. I'm the one who saved grandfather's legacy from becoming a monument to greed. You always were jealous of Victoria's success. No, Mother. I was sad that success changed her. I was sad that you encouraged it. I was sad that our family valued wealth over kindness. But I'm not sad anymore. I'm free. I ended the call. The entire lobby was silent, watching. Victoria stood by the door, holding her pathetic box of personal items. She'll never forgive you. That's her choice. Just like discrimination was yours. Thomas's tablet began pinging with notifications. Ms. Walker, the market is responding. Heritage Trust stock is up 12% since the news broke. Apparently, return to community banking values is trending. Jennifer Martinez, the entrepreneur in Chanel, laughed. My live stream has 2 million views. The comments are incredible. People are opening accounts just to support the new vision. Morrison pulled out one final document. There's one more thing. Your grandfather recorded a video message for this moment. He wanted it played on the main lobby screen. The large display that usually showed market tickers flickered to life. Grandfather appeared, sitting in his study, looking directly at the camera. His voice filled the marble space. If you're watching this, it means Bella has claimed her inheritance, and Victoria has learned a hard truth. I built Heritage Trust to serve everyone. The teacher saving for supplies, the immigrant sending money home, the elderly person living on Social Security. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that mission. Victoria, you're brilliant, driven, and capable. But you let ambition poison your soul. You forgot that money is a tool, not a measure of human worth. I hope this lesson, though painful, helps you rediscover who you were before status consumed you. Bella, you never asked for wealth, but you've earned responsibility. You teach 5-year-olds to share, to be kind, to include everyone. Those lessons are what Heritage Trust needs. Don't let anyone convince you that gentleness is weakness or that kindness is naive. It takes more strength to lift others up than to push them down. To my employees, thank you for your patience. To those who were turned away, please come back. To everyone watching, remember, a bank is just a building without trust. Earn it. Keep it. Value it above all profits. The screen faded. Several people were crying, including Margaret. But there was more. Thomas's phone rang. He listened, his eyes widening. Ms. Walker, the forensic audit preliminary report. They found something. Victoria has been embezzling, small amounts but consistent, about $500,000 over 2 years. Victoria collapsed. No, no, no. I was going to pay it back. It was just borrowing. The lifestyle, the expectations, I couldn't afford it all on my salary. That's why you needed the Goldman Sachs job, I realized, to cover the theft before the annual audit. She nodded, sobbing. I'm ruined. Completely ruined. 6 months later, I stood in the same marble lobby, but everything had changed. The crystal chandeliers remained, but now they illuminated a credit union partnership desk, a financial literacy center, and a children's play area where customers' kids could color while their parents banked. Heritage Trust had become the fastest-growing community bank in the region. We'd opened 50,000 new accounts, mostly teachers, nurses, firefighters, and service workers who'd felt unwelcome at other banks. Our stock had risen 40%. Margaret, now Vice President of Customer Relations, showed me the latest satisfaction scores. 97% positive, the highest in the state. And Victoria? I asked. She's adjusting. Margaret pulled up a news article. She's working at a small credit union in Idaho. Part of her plea deal, she had to make restitution and accept a position serving rural communities. She teaches financial literacy to farmers now. The embezzlement charges had been reduced to misdemeanors in exchange for full restitution and 5 years of community service. I'd advocated for rehabilitation over prison. Grandfather would have wanted that. She sent a letter. Margaret handed me an envelope. Victoria's handwriting was different, less bold, more careful. Bella, I won't ask for forgiveness because I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that teaching farmers about loans, helping immigrant families open their first accounts, explaining interest rates to people who remind me of grandfather when he was young, it's changed me. I make $42,000 a year now. I drive a 2010 Toyota. I live in a one-bedroom apartment. And for the first time in my adult life, I sleep without anxiety medication. You saved me from myself. I hated you for it. Now I'm grateful. Maybe someday, when I've earned it, we can have coffee. Just coffee. No Hermes bags, no status games, just sisters. Victoria. I folded the letter carefully. Maybe someday. My phone buzzed. Ms. Bella, are you coming to read to us today? A voice message from Isabella, one of my kindergarten students. On my way, I texted back. Some things were more important than board meetings. I still teach kindergarten every morning. After lunch, 3 days a week, I review Heritage Trust decisions, attend board meetings, and ensure we stay true to grandfather's vision. The dividend from my shares is more than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, so I created the Walker Foundation for Educators, fully funding classroom supplies for every teacher in the state. Mother eventually came around, though our relationship remains strained. She attends family dinners now, smaller affairs where we eat off regular plates and talk about regular things. She even volunteered at my school's autumn festival, running the face painting booth, Progress. The bank that once turned away a teacher for wanting her last $150 now has a waiting list for our Teacher's Advantage program. We offer zero-fee accounts, preferred mortgage rates, and automatic approval for classroom supply loans that are forgiven if the teacher completes the school year. Thomas Chen became CEO with my blessing. He understood that profits without purpose are meaningless. Under his leadership and my oversight, Heritage Trust proved that treating everyone with dignity isn't just morally right, it's good business. But the real measure of success isn't in numbers or stock prices. It's in Margaret's proud smile when she helps a nervous immigrant open their first account. It's in the elderly man who can cash his Social Security check without shame. It's in the Riverside Community Center's after-school program, now serving 300 kids whose parents work multiple jobs. Grandfather knew money was just paper and metal, worthless without trust. He knew that power without compassion corrupts absolutely. He knew that sometimes the best person to run a bank isn't a banker, it's a kindergarten teacher who understands that everyone deserves respect, regardless of their balance. Every morning, I drive past Heritage Trust in my 11-year-old Honda, now with 200,000 miles, and smile. Grandfather's portrait still hangs in the lobby, watching over his true legacy, a bank that serves everyone. Thank you for witnessing my story. If you've faced family betrayal or workplace discrimination, know that documentation and legal knowledge are your best allies. Please subscribe if this story resonated with you and share your own experiences below. Your voice matters. Remember, you don't need billions to deserve respect. You just need to know your worth and stand firm in it. What boundaries will you set today? And if you're a teacher, service worker, or anyone who's been made to feel less than because of your bank balance, you are valued, you matter, and you deserve dignity. Thank you for listening.